So dating as a virgin, it is just quite the odd, strange, I, I can't even put a word on it. It's quite an experience. So I just want to talk about my experience with that today. Before we go any further, I'm going to make a huge disclaimer and say that I will not be making any moral judgments on whether or not virgins are better than non-virgins. It's going to be me talking about my personal experiences when it comes to dating. But outside of that, I'm not casting any stones. Do what you want with your body. I do not care whatsoever. Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions, but just try not to get too passionate. So yeah, let's get into it. I looked at the viewfinder. So yeah, let's get into it. So first, I guess I can start this video by explaining why I think I'm still a virgin. There's no concrete answer to this. I'm still trying to figure it out. The first reason is that I am quite shy, insecure. My first instinct isn't to be comfortable and vulnerable in intimate situations. And it seems quite obvious, at least to me, that sex is such a vulnerable and intimate interaction with another human being. And so the thought just initially scares me. The thought of just getting naked and showing my body in front of somebody else. And I used to do sports in high school, middle school, all that stuff. I was never that person who felt comfortable just changing out in the open. I still get pee shy to this day. Like when I go to the bathroom with my girls and they all like to cram in together, I will not be able to pee if they're in there and there's like no stalls. I don't know. There's just something about my body that seems so private, and like I don't want others to really be able to see it in full detail and comment on it. I feel comfortable being naked in front of other people. Physically, metaphysically, it's just always shied away from sex because of that, because the thought of being naked and doing things on top of a man, I really need to have some level of trust with that person in order for me to feel comfortable with doing it. Another reason why I think I'm still a virgin is because I have a religious upbringing. So I grew up in a traditionally Christian household. Although my parents were never particularly strict, so it's not like they necessarily pressured me into thinking you have to wait till marriage, like sex is a sin, like no casual sex, no nothing. They were not like that. But I think just growing up, going to church and hearing that stuff reiterated day in, day out, constantly being fed that at such an early age, I think it affected me, and for some reason it just stuck with me. I think they call that Catholic guilt or something. I'm not Catholic. I don't necessarily read the Bible every day or that I pray all the time or anything like that. There are some values that have stuck with me from when I went to church and stuff, but now I'm not entirely sure what I would call myself. I guess you could say more spiritual. And even that term I'm not comfortable with. I think growing up in the church and sitting in the sanctuary and hear them lecture us about sex. See, I'm even uncomfortable saying it. Like, isn't that so pathetic? I literally go, sex. You are too old to be acting this way. Just hearing these conversations about sex and purity and waiting till marriage and abstinence and all of that stuff, I always just have this little feeling or voice in my head that's just like, you shouldn't do that. And then my psyche splits because then I hear another voice like, that's completely ridiculous. I've talked to other people who've grown up in religious households. Most of them aren't religious and don't practice anymore, and yet they still share the same experience of being a little nervous and shy when it comes to sexuality. I also haven't had that many opportunities in dating and relationships or anything with the opposite sex at all. I didn't get a chance to like even kiss a guy until like 3 years ago. Insane, but I promise you, like when it comes to dating, I just never had that opportunity. In high school, I was focused on school and I didn't really have any crushes on anyone. In college, I had my crushes, but the crushes were usually taken or already in relationships, so I just distracted myself, focused on school once again. And then once I came back home, I was focused on finding a job and rebuilding connections with the people I had here, focusing on friendships and things like that. I'm not in male-dominated spaces, so I work in boutique fitness, which is pretty much mainly just women. I'm not around men often, and the only time I really do find myself engaging with them is when I go out to like bars and clubs on the weekends occasionally, and that's just not really where you want to meet the best of the best. So yeah, that's another reason, is that I just haven't had that many experiences talking, dating, being with men in general. And now I'm gonna get into dating as a virgin. First of all, I didn't know, or maybe I just didn't expect most people to be turned off when they hear that I'm a virgin. I know what people say. They say, you don't need to share that stuff when you're dating, or you should hold that off for a later time, or you don't even have to tell them that you're a virgin, like it's none of their business. And that's not why I'm telling them. The reason that I tell them is usually because I am asked about it. In the first 3 dates, the topic of sexual intimacy and compatibility is going to come up. Either they're expecting sex to happen soon. I'm still That is crazy that I do that with the word. And the second thing is that I know on my end from jump that since I'm a virgin, I cannot just have sex. Like, I'm putting a number on it. When the first couple of dates, I can't do that. I wouldn't feel comfortable. I think we've already discussed my issues with vulnerability and intimacy, and that for me to engage in such an activity, I need to establish some sort of trusting, loving relationship to where I feel comfortable with sharing that part of myself with them. And I know that from jump, but they don't. And the last thing I want to do is waste people's time, because not everybody wants to commit before having sex, which I totally understand. Conversation has to be brought up. Otherwise, we both end up wasting each other's time, so to speak, and just going on a couple of dates and then it just doesn't go anywhere. And in my experience, I can honestly say that I am shocked at the reactions that I get when I tell people I'm a virgin. So usually they're just like, oh, are you like waiting for marriage or something? Then they get turned off and ghost me, because once they hear committed relationship and it's like the second date, I understand them being like, pump your brakes. Not interested in that. One dude actually told me, he was like, so what's wrong with you? Like, cause you're not ugly. He's like, what's really wrong with you? Is your personality? And I'm like, no, I hope not. And then we have the typical cocky guy that's like, oh, you're gonna get attached. You're gonna get attached. That's why I can't pursue this anymore, because I don't need you clinging on after we do it. Since it's your first time, it'll be so emotional. Which I guess a part of that is kind of true, but also relax. Most of y'all don't know what y'all doing, no way. So I highly doubt. Sometimes I get the reaction in which people are creepily into it, really into it, to where they bring it up all the time and make crude jokes that make me so uncomfortable, and they're just like, oh yeah, that's hot, that's like so hot. I'm actually like really into that. I can't wait to take over. And it's like, ooh, not interested in being fetishized. It honestly feels like I'm just like in a hamster wheel running at full speed but going nowhere, or like a dog chasing its own tail, because I'm uncomfortable and vulnerable in intimate situations. Therefore, I know I need to be in a trusting and secure relationship before sharing that part of myself. The guys that I'm interested in are not interested in sharing that moment with me, because they know that I'll get attached, which is true based off of the first two premises. So they reject and ghost me, but then we're left at, if every guy does that and says that, how am I supposed to fix the first two problems? And it's been brutal, to say the least. It's ruined every single possible relationship I could have been in, the topic of sex, because we ultimately were never on the same page, and it just seems like nobody wants to invest themselves in dealing with a virgin at this age. And I get that. I understand that perspective very well, but it's like, what am I supposed to do here? Because I can't just go out and do it on a whim. That would probably end up being a traumatic situation for me. So yeah, that's my perspective on that. I would just feel left out, just awkwardly in the corner, like, God, I wish I could relate to that story, or God, I'm glad I don't relate to that story. I'm missing out on something so huge, and I am, no pun intended. Oh, it's just too good. But I also just can't rush into it, so I'm gonna take my time, not give up, and know that I can have sex in a comfortable position. No pun intended. Yeah, I feel like Michael Scott with all of these puns going crazy right now. Whether you're a virgin or not, doesn't matter. Leave your thoughts below. Follow me on my socials. I'm going to put them in the description. I'd love to chat with you guys on there as well. I won't be doing that again. I'm going to go now. Thank you for watching.